So there's virtually no loads. What loads are showing up are not paying great. And then there's no blocks. It's got me asking, what the heck's going on with Amazon Relay? So I was hesitant in making this video. I mean, I didn't want to make it a month ago and seem like Chicken Little out here saying, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. But at the same time, I figured there might be somebody out there watching this channel thinking, I'm going to do exactly what that guy's doing. I want to hook up with Amazon, do all this local work, you know, be home every night. I'm going to do exactly what this guy's doing. And I feel like I owe it to that person to at least say like, hey, listen, in 2024, there's been some major changes happening with Amazon Relay. And if you look at those changes and you're going to try to put your finger on one thing as far as what's causing this, I really do feel like it comes down to two things. Now, I know you talk to a lot of people and, you know, they have a lot of input on this. They're like, oh, it's, you know, it's the election, it's the economy, it's the war. It may very well be those things. But, you know, I'm going to focus on the two things that I can actually put my finger on that I see on a day-to-day basis. And those two things are volume and how Amazon likes to send loads. Now, if you look at volume, and I would identify as somebody who's been paying attention, pretty close attention, to the Southern California Amazon Relay market for probably the last 2 years. I started working for them in April of 22, still working for them today. But if you look at, you know, I've kind of kept an eye of all of Southern California, and that's kind of like San Diego, LA, Ontario, as far out as like Fresno. And then, you know, I do pay attention to cities that I might end up in. Like I keep kind of a close eye on Phoenix, and I do the same with Vegas. And I will say, and I'm not, you know, these aren't like peak numbers. I always watch other content and I'll see people showing like peak numbers, and it's like, that's kind of misrepresentative. I've never looked at Amazon as far as like, I mean, anybody can make money during peak. What I'm interested in is, what do you do for the other 11 months out of the year? And for those other 11 months out of the year, Amazon has always had about 1,000 loads in that little bubble of what I would call Southern California, Las Vegas, Fresno, and Phoenix. There's always easily been 1,000 loads at any given time in that area. And so what I'm seeing today, in fact, what I've seen all of 2024, is where there used to be 1,000 loads today. And, you know, I've been kind of waiting on this video because I wanted more data points. And what I've been doing every day, I'll let you know my method on this. I've been signing on to the Amazon Relay load board every day around noon, around lunchtime, and just seeing like, okay, let's draw a 250 mile around Lancaster. Reason I pick Lancaster is it encompasses all those areas I mentioned earlier. And when I hop on there every day, I was going to make this wonderful chart to show you, and really the chart doesn't change much. It's just a straight line across. Every day where there used to be 1,000 loads, today there's 200 to 250, which is crazy because, I mean, just Ontario alone, like for the last 2 years, if you drew a 50-mile circle around Ontario and said, show me the load count every day, there's always been at least 500 loads just in that area. The fact that you expand that area out to 250 miles and that there's now, where there used to be 1,000, now there's 200, that's insane. And now you couple that low volume with also keeping in mind, how does Amazon like to send loads? There's, you know, their preferred method, and it's not difficult to figure this out. If you start looking at like, what's the cheapest way for Amazon to send loads, it's actually with their own employees, also known as like their TOM team. I forget what TOM stands for. It's like an acronym. It's like Transportation Operation Management, I think. I could be wrong on that. But they'll have their own employees. I know a lot of times when I've been doing the shuttle hostler gig, it's like, you know, they'll bring me on for a few weeks at a time, and it's like, man, how come I'm here for a couple weeks and what's going on? And it's like, oh, our employees are getting their CDLs. I've known about that. I just didn't know what the outcome of that would be. And so basically, if you know, that's kind of why local work in San Diego has pretty much dried up. You know, a lot of their own employees have gotten their own CDLs. And then another thing I've noticed is inside Amazon yards, and I'm going to get to Amazon Freight Partners in a second, but inside Amazon yards, they're actually bringing on like Amazon branded trailers that actually say Amazon Logistics on it. A lot of people will say, you know, they'll see trucks out on the road that have the little Amazon smile on them or have the Amazon branding on them, and they'll say like, oh, Amazon owns all these trucks. It's not the case. A lot of people confuse that. If you look at the door where, you know, like if you look at where this one says Amazon Logistics, 9 times out of 10, probably 19 times out of 20, it actually doesn't say Amazon Logistics. Like, this is where somebody like me, let's say, decides I want to become an Amazon freight partner. Rather than saying Amazon Logistics, this would say Stat Trucking. But I noticed, I was down at San 3 last night, and I noticed in their yard parked, they have 6 of these Amazon Logistics trucks, which are for their Tom team to take loads. That's where like all the move the trailer across the streets that I love so much. That's why these quick little runs around town, that's why they've pretty much disappeared, because they're sending those loads now with their in-house employees. The next way that Amazon likes to send loads is through its Amazon Freight Partner program. Now, if you're not familiar with this program, I'll put a link in it. Basically, I've kind of kept an eye on this over the last couple years. It's where you can, let's say an owner-operator like me decides I want to go big with Amazon, and I'm like, okay, I want to sign up. They'll give you, the program's changed over the years, but they'll give you anywhere between like 5 and 10 tractors. They're Amazon branded tractors, so but with your name on it. So it would have all the Amazon branding. It would say Stat Trucking if I decided to do it, and now I have to hire a group of people to work for me. My hesitation in doing it is, first and foremost, you absolutely at that point work for Amazon. There's no and I'm kind of trying to get away from the employee model of stuff. I've been an employee most of my life, and I kind of like just being out on my own. But make no mistake about it, I'm sure there's money that can be made, but you absolutely at that point work for Amazon. I don't believe you can take those Amazon tractors and go run like a JB Hunt load or a CH Robinson load. I think at that point you are committed to Amazon. The other thing that scares me about it is if you look at the details of the stuff, they're willing to give you 5 to 10 tractors, I think somewhere for an initial investment of like $40,000 to $50,000. It makes me real nervous when my down payment on a $1 million to $2 million investment is $40,000 to $50,000. I've never looked into the program. There might be something I'm missing, but I don't want to know what the back end of that looks like. But basically, you get in as an Amazon freight partner. And I've never seen their load board, or it could just be that they book contracts all the time, but this is like the second way Amazon likes to send their loads. And then the remainder of the ways they send loads are where somebody like myself, an owner-operator, kind of gets entered into the equation. Next way they like to do them is through contracts. This is where you sign up for Amazon and say like, hey, I'm willing to work for you for a week at a time, and basically all that a contract is just a series of blocks. Next way they like to send loads is through blocks. This is where, hey, we didn't get these specific days of these contracts covered. How would you like to come work for us for a day or for a day and a half? Basically, they offer these blocks as like a 13-hour or a 37-hour block of time where somebody like myself can sign up. This is where they pay you like a flat rate, plus they pay 48.5 cents a mile for every mile they ask you to drive, plus accessorials. That word's hard for me to say. Accessorials, and that's basically covering stuff like tolls. Now, when things don't get covered with blocks, this is where they will start looking at like post a truck. This is where they say like, hey, who's got their truck posted that matches a rate that we're willing to pay? And then keep in mind, these other ways that I've mentioned, I'm not an Amazon employee. I'm not an Amazon freight partner. I don't do blocks. I don't do contracts. I don't do post a truck. Now is where things finally make it to the load board. And this is where, like an urgent load or like a load that didn't get covered comes up. This is where it shows up on the load board. And then things that don't get covered on the load board, the last way they like to send them is through these spot capacity emails. And it's easy to tell like how they like to send them, because basically it's just an order of like the cheapest way for them to send them to the most expensive. So now that we know that their volume's down and how they like to send them, how do I know that the load board is really hurting these days? It all comes down to the absence of blocks. I have not seen a single block in 2024. So if something ahead of me on the food chain, as far as how they like to send stuff, if something ahead of where I like to get my work from is non-existent, I know that the work from that point down is going to be affected as well. And blocks for the last 2 years, there's been a new block starting up in San Bernardino about every hour for the last 2 years. The fact that there are none, and this isn't a Southern California thing. You can look up, I've done a couple relay rates where it's like, let's check on blocks in Denver. Let's look, somewhere southeast, northeast, southwest. I'll look at like Portland, New York, 250-mile range around each of these. There has not been a single block anywhere that I've seen anywhere in America, period. And so the fact that blocks are missing, I mean, obviously everything below them is going to be affected. And when I first came back from my time off, I took a few weeks off at Christmas, came back like the second or third week of January. You know, when I first came back, I thought that this was like business as usual. For the last 2 years, the little, I guess you could call it, the Amazon freight cycle in Southern California has kind of followed like a 10-day pattern. It's like for every 10 days, a third of them would be bad, a third of them would be great, and a third of them would be okay. What I tried to do, anticipate, predict, whatever you want to call it, is I would try to show up for the 2/3 of days that were either okay or great, and try to avoid the days that were bad. So when I first came back, you know, the first, I'd say 3 to 5 days, and I wasn't seeing any of this stuff, I just thought like, okay, well, this is business as usual. By the time we got to like day 7 of just seeing sub $2 a mile loads, no blocks, limited spot capacity, I kind of started, I wouldn't say I got worried, but it was kind of like, okay, well, what's going on? And, you know, rather than, I have historically watched the load board a lot. Rather than watching the load board all day, kind of paying attention to it, kind of keeping it running in the background of my life, I don't want to say I gave up on it, but I'm like, you know, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I need to watch this closer. So I decided, take a couple days. I set the iPad up. The reason I do it on the iPad view is it gives me a bigger view than what's on the phone. And I just set the thing on screen record. And so then what I would do is I'd come back and, you know, say, let's see everything that dropped on the load board for the last 8 hours. And I could scrub through 8 hours in about 2 minutes. And what I found is, you know, in San Diego, there's typically been anywhere between like 30 to 50 great loads dropped a day. A lot of them staying local, some of them kind of staying regional. And this 30 to 50 dropped down to maybe they were having 2 or 3. But the rest of the stuff was, I mean, I've never seen loads go below $2 a mile in Southern California. And for the first time, it's like I've been seeing like $1.38 a mile loads, $1.50 a mile loads. And I just, that doesn't make sense for me to, you know, go run the truck, work for that, especially with everything that Amazon requires as far as like your grade and, you know, keep, you know, that they have high expectations for that. And, you know, when their pay's good, when the pay matches the expectations, it makes sense and I'll go do it. But when the expectations remain high, and, you know, when you got those champagne expectations on a beer budget, it's not going to work for me.
Oh, we don't play that.
So what am I doing to make money in 2024? I mean, I've been heavily reliant on Amazon in the past. You know, when I first started this thing, when I first started making these videos, I had signed up for a bunch of brokers back in the day. Amazon hasn't always required the 180-day requirement as far as the age of your authority. I had signed up for these things, and it's not like I gave this like blind allegiance to Amazon. One thing I've kind of been doing behind the scenes, but not really ever talking about in a video is, you know, you want to be sure that you're still getting like the best deal for yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, I am a business owner. I do want to be sure that I'm making the right decision. And so for the last 2 years, yes, I've been working for Amazon, but I've been paying attention to other brokers. And it just so happens for the last 2 years, Amazon, in my opinion, has been paying the best. But, you know, about the end of January, after seeing that like their work had really become very limited, the pay had become very reduced, I started paying closer attention to these brokers, and I've just been working for them. I mean, I've you know, rather than working for Amazon 4 to 5 days a week, I'm now working for them like 1 to 2 days a week. And the rest of the time, it's like, you know, I'm getting in touch with other brokers, making new connections with people, and seeing, you know, like, hey, what do you have to offer me? So my point for making this video, you know, a common theme in a lot of my videos is I don't want to misrepresent anything. If somebody's out there thinking like, you know, I'm going to get into Amazon and do exactly what this guy's doing, and then they start today and look at the rates that I'm seeing, I don't want them to think that, you know, I've tried to trick them or do anything like that. I mean, my goal of this thing is like, let's be as transparent as I can and let's show people what's going on. And if what I'm doing looks good to you, you want to do it. I've never said in any of my videos, you definitely should work for Amazon. I've also never said you definitely shouldn't. I mean, I still am working for Amazon. I'm just scaling that back to, you know, 1 to 2 days a week. When the conditions are right, I will absolutely go out and get after it for them. But, you know, when it's how it's been, it's difficult for me to meet their expectations with the pay that they're offering. But, you know, basically my point in making this is, historically, Amazon has been my sole source of income. It's no longer financially viable to do that. It's, you know, they're a great piece in the puzzle, but as far as, you know, just working for them and only working for them, I don't think it's possible in 2024 to do that. Could that change today? It could, and you know, it could change tomorrow, and I hope it does. And if it does, I'll keep you posted. But Anyway, just wanted to check in with you, let you know like what's going on, the state of things, and as always, I hope this video serves you well. Appreciate you for watching. Take care.